Today's dedication is for Terax, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Nekusar versus Slimefoot. And we've got some ramp, all the colours we need, so just have to hope to get into a wheel, which is pretty likely with Nekusar. And it's a turn 1 Sensei's Top from the Golgari player. And just another land for us, so yeah, we'll throw out the swamp into the Is It Signet. And now some ramp from our opponent as well, a Nature's Law. And then spinning the top. Alright, and a Blasphemous Act ready for the Slimefoot to come down. Assuming it comes down with a bunch of saprolings. So, yeah, we're not doing anything for 4 mana. We'll just get out a tap land, I think. Might be able to hold our opponent off on getting down the commander here. Okay, going for Utopia Mycom. Maybe getting him to play around counter magic, although I might want the spore counters on this before his commander comes in. Thylid Devourer this time. Okay, and there's a Vamp Tutor for us, so we've got something to cast if we go for the Gilded Lotus now, which I think is fine here. Better to ramp before anything else. So depending on what our opponent does next turn, we could maybe go Blasphemous Act into a wheel or something like that. Anyway, they get the first spore counters on the fungus here. And now Scion of the Wild is an avatar. So they're looking to get lots of creatures down in the form of saprolings. And then spinning top again. So it's going to cost us 6 mana to go for the Blasphemous Act here. I'm not sure it's really worth it. And our opponent's down to 2 cards in hand. He may well scoop to that anyway. So just for the fun of it, if our opponent's playing a more casual deck like this, let's go for the Wheel of Fortune and we'll not only get our tactics going, but we'll refill our opponent's hand as well. So obviously draw into the Wheel of Fortune. We'll play a land now. And then definitely get down the Nekusar before we go for the Wheel of Fortune. So we force our opponent to discard his hand and draw 7, we do the same. And that will have our opponent be pinged 7 times with the Nekusar because he drew 7. He will be pinged again during his draw phase here. And yeah, that's noteworthy. We've got into a Winds of Change as well, so why don't we go for a Volcanic Island? Actually got a decent hand there, but okay, then going for Sensei's Top now. Should probably have waited to the end phase for that, because he is about to draw again. So we'll go for the 1 mana wheel. Each player shuffles cards from hand into the library and draws that many. So we only draw 6 here. We draw 6, but our opponent draws another 7, so it's another 7 pings from the Nekusar. And unfortunately don't get into another wheel there, so maybe shouldn't have gone for the Winds of Change. Can always crack the Relic of Sauron for a loot though. More spore counters on the fungus. They really need to do something with these old fungus and spore counters, make a commander that can specifically take advantage of these. I know that we've got Gave and cards like that, but I don't know, for every 1 spore counter on, put 3 on there instead. Something crazy like that would be good. Although that's going to be rammed full of combos, isn't it? At which point you might as well run Gave. A Green Sun Zenith tutoring for a spell with converted mana cost of 3. That's going to come straight into play. And it is a Dryad of the Elysian Grove trying to ramp out for us. So managing to make 2 lands here. And the Polluted Delta will tap for mana already. So might as well save the Polluted Delta for shuffling when he doesn't like what he sees on top with the Sensei's Top. And there is Thelon Havenwood. So we're facing down a 4-4 now. They might swing in at us here. Might as well, I suppose, but deciding against it. Yeah, holding back the 5-5 and the 4-4 for some reason. Alright, we get into a Fate Unraveler. And another land, unfortunately. So let's go Ancient Tomb. We'll get down this Relic of Sauron. And then I think we're fine to get down the Fate Unraveler here, because we'll still be able to hold up the 2 pieces of counter magic. Hopefully that will get us around to another turn where we have Nekusar in play and we can get a wheel going. And if not, we can always just crack this for draw 2 and discard. So we're going to be dealing 2 damage per card that our opponent draws here. Doing the spore counters first, so they will be able to make fungus. And they draw 2 cards at the beginning of the turn thanks to Nekusar, so that will be 4 damage in total. Okay, that is an Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. Might regret letting that in. Yeah, let's draw a card with Remand here. I mean, they're not swinging in with their big creatures anyway, but this is a nice tempo play with the Remand. And that goes into a Howling Mind, so some more card draw is good when we've got the draw pain already. So now Utopia Mycon is going to make a saproling token. They've floated 3 green mana, and the same with the Devourer as well. And then sacking both of the saprolings for mana means that Ashaya can come into play. So all the creatures are going to be lands now, which is no doubt part of a combo, I would imagine. Also facing down a 14/14. So forcing them to use a lot of their mana. They now have creature lands, like I said, so they can be tapped for mana. And that is a Spore Sower Thallid. So they're going to get the saprolings going much faster with that. And then spinning top once again. Alright, so if we keep Nekusar in play and the Howling Mine at the beginning of their turn, they will draw 3 cards, meaning that is 6 damage on them. Alright, there's a Rakdos Signet as well. So I think we're fine to crack the Relic here, because we are getting into a surplus of lands. Alright, gets us into Demolition Field. I don't think he's going to be useful. Maybe hold on to it for a Guy's Cradle or something. Just discard a land. Yeah, just getting into more mana. So we were off to a hell of a start, but not going too well for us now. So let's drop Arcane Signet into Rakdos Signet. And we're just concentrating on getting down our artifacts and holding up the gate here, really. So Lightning Greaves onto the Commander, and we need to hope that we can survive through the next turn now. Depending on how committed they are to the red zone, might have to block the Ashaya. They do have a 7/7 here as well. But we're holding up the negate, and we are going to get a decent number of cards next turn, so hopefully we can get into a wheel or two. So a Spore Counter from the Thallid goes on all of the fungus, and then some of the fungus put Spore Counters on themselves as well. So here we go with the draw pane. Like I said, draw 3 and take 6. Looking at the top 3 cards first, I mean you're about to draw into all of them, so I'm not sure what the aim is there. Maybe draw a card or 2 first and then spin it. Getting them down pretty low there though, it's just unlucky that we haven't seen another wheel. Just need to pray that this negate can save us. So they're down to 13. If we were in regular 1v1, we'd have started at 30 life each and would have had them down to 3 here. But we are playing 1v1 in the multiplayer room with multiplayer ban list and rules. Alright, a Spore Mound, gonna make saps with landfall. And that does count as a land itself thanks to the Ashaya, so when it enters it triggers its own landfall and makes a sap. And now seeing Slimefoot the Stowaway. And again that triggers landfall on the Spore Mound. Now Ashaya only counts non-tokens, doesn't it? Yes it does, so yeah, if it counted tokens and made these into lands, then it could trigger landfall infinitely, and they do have a sack outlet, so yeah, they could drain us over and over and over again with this, but fortunately, that's not something we have to worry about. Cracking the Polluted Delta to make landfall again, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana if they want it, which luckily isn't enough for a Crater Hoof. Can't counter a creature anyway. Alright, E-Witness is just treading water, so that goes after the Green Sun, I imagine. Another Spore Counter, or Spore Token from the mound. And yes, they are targeting the Green Sun Zenith with that. Alright, so they have a surplus of mana from the Saprolings, thanks to the Utopia Mycon. Landfall from the Dryad Arbor. So that's 6, 7, 8, and 9 mana. The Ashaya is now a 20/20, tapping that down. And that's Yavimaya Elder. So yeah, our opponent really treading water here. Surprised he tapped out his Ashaya in order to get down the Yavimaya Elder. That could have waited, surely. He's missed a lot of damage during combat this game. Okay, cracking some of the tokens, so Slimefoot gonna drain us. Now this obviously gains our opponent some life as well, so does make us even more desperate for some decent draws here. If we give our opponent much time, he's gonna have us. Alright, so, oh, it's Green Sun's Twilight, not Green Sun's Zenith. So we'll just go for the negate onto that. And all their remaining creatures have Summoning Sickness, so I don't think there's anything else for us to worry about. They're back up to 19. We draw 2 additional cards, get into another land. Purposefully kept 37 lands in the deck because it's Grixis, and you don't want to struggle getting into lands, but yeah, apparently. Maybe need to put it down to 35, 36, somewhere around there. That's a Cataract Parasite, which is more draw pain at least. So yeah, let's just go for Flooded Strand and we'll hope that our opponent continues to durdle. So yeah, we'll go for the Relic of Sauron again. And we'll draw 2 and discard. Relic of Sauron doing a hell of a lot of work for us here. Alright, and there is a Sheoldred. So we're getting into the draw pain. There's just only a little bit of extra draw for our opponent is the problem. Get rid of the Mana Confluence, should be fine. So Cataract Parasite is going to be switched on thanks to our commander being in play. And we'll get down the Sheoldred as well, so yeah, I wasn't able to see any more card draw into the Sheoldred to gain us some life, but I think our opponent's looking like he's definitely got us here. Is the client bugging out on us? There we go. So Sheoldred coming into play, and I don't think the life gain from this would have mattered anyway, because our opponent should be going wide on us this turn, I would think. Alright, client just crashed on me, but hopefully it will start to behave itself now that I've restarted. The fungus going to start making a bunch of saps again. And then we've got 2 life every time they draw to Sheoldred, and they lose 1 to our other 3 creatures. And they are going to draw 3 cards here. So that is 2, 4, 5. That's 15 life they're going to lose. Our opponent making saprolings with his fungus creatures, and then sacrificing them to make mana. This is during the draw phase, so I'm not sure he's going to be able to make use of this mana, but obviously gaining life with his Slimefoot. All we're really doing is digging our opponent further and further into his library here so that he can actually get into some answers, makes another saproling, and then letting things resolve gets us into more draw pain. And they're tapping down a bunch of their creatures here. I mean, this is fine with me. I don't think they were going to die there unless I've miscalculated, so I don't think they need to be worrying about gaining life with their commander here. Making a saproling again, and they're doing that with the 4 mana Slimefoot the Stowaway ability. Tapping down all their creatures means that we can just swing in at them. Unless they've got something else for us, they can obviously draw into more creatures here. So they go back up to 19 and then have another saproling. So maybe back up to 20 with a bunch of draw pain on the stack. Alright, so getting our opponent down to 9 thanks to all that card draw and life gain. But they do have 5 cards in hand here, used a lot of their mana on their commander. I suppose if they didn't want to do the maths, they could have waited until a few triggers had resolved, see how low they are, and then see if they actually wanted to go for the activations on their commander like that. Anyway, yet another fungus into play, and they get a scry with that thanks to using the Path of Ancestry. So that of course makes another saproling with landfall. And luckily we do have a lot of counter magic in the deck in order to buy ourselves time in this Grixis deck, because it can be slow to get going thanks to some of the bigger, more expensive cards that we've got. And Eldritch Evolution is pretty much a tutor. It gets the card straight onto the battlefield, so not sure I want to let that resolve. Okay, apparently I've passed priority. Yeah, the client's been really laggy and weird. I'm sure I wasn't passing priority there. Can that spell not be countered or something? Anyway, they got down Korozda Guildmage, so making some more saproling tokens. Do they just go infinite here? That'll be really annoying if they do, because I was absolutely looking to counter that. Oh yeah, surely they can just go nuts here. They make a bunch of saprolings by getting rid of the Ashaya, I think. And then they've got the mana to keep making saprolings, and they've got enough to drain us here alone. Yeah, that's a really annoying way to lose, because I'll say good game to my opponent. The client's been really laggy and buggy, and I was absolutely going to counter that, so we'll play another one. I'm going to restart the computer and we'll play another game, but yeah, fun stowaway deck that. Alright, up against the same player again, but it's Heartless Hidetsugu this time, which can be a very, very fast combo deck. One more land would have been good there, but fortunately not. We are on the play, so we need to get into what we need pretty quickly. That is a wheel along with a vamp tutor. The wheel's pretty useless when we're just looking to empty our hands, so get rid of Winds of Change. And we'll get down the Mana Confluence here and hold up the vamp tutor. We can go for the Jeweled Lotus. That means that we can go for a turn 2 Nekusar, so that's probably the play. Or maybe not. There's a Mana Vault from our opponent, so maybe not the best idea to get them into some more cards, but they can only tap that for mana once. So maybe just going for Mana Crypt so that we can get down Sheoldred instead would be a better idea. Then we're forcing them to get rid of the Mana Crypt. Alright, Verdant Catacombs, and go for the untapped Underground Sea for some more blue mana. And obviously we want double black so that we can play out the Sheoldred here. And then we're very reliant on our commander to be getting us into more cards here, but I'm hoping that the mono red player is going to struggle to get rid of our Nekusar. Not sure how many burn spells will be in the Hidetsugu deck. Our opponent's got more fast mana of his own. Struggling a little bit on red mana though. And he might not be able to rely on his Makokro as much as he was hoping he would be able to. So it looks like we managed to have our Mana Crypt survive. And that draws us into Relic of Sauron, which is very good. I think we need to get our commander into play here though. So hit our opponent for 4 death touch damage from the Sheoldred, and then it's through to the draw phase. So our opponent draws 2 cards and takes 3 damage to each card drawn, 2 from Sheoldred and 1 from Nekusar. So already we've got our opponent down to 25, and there's the double red, making more mana with the Rite of Flame and the Heartless Hidetsugu into play. No haste on it, thankfully. Alright, so there is a Font of Mythos for more card draw. We've got the Pain, we just need the additional card draw now. And we managed to gain some life, so let's crack the Arid Mesa, get another untapped jewel in with that. And then if we go for the Relic of Sauron, we'll still be able to tap for 2 mana into the Mythos, so just tap out here. And then we swing in with our 4-5. No profitable blocks for them there, so we just land a free hit for 4. That's 8 damage from Sheoldred so far. And now our opponent's going to draw 1 card, 2, 3, 4, and again take 3 per card that's drawn. Maybe take a hit to Mana Crypt as well, most likely to the Vault also. They dodge a bolt from the Mana Crypt because of course they do. Praying our opponent doesn't get some combo off out of nowhere here. So all those triggers going on the stack, and they haven't even drawn all their cards yet. They go up to 9 cards in hand and take a bunch of damage, going down to 8 after the Mana Vault. Exiling Simian Spirit Guide during the draw phase makes a red mana for them. And then cycling a Footfall Crater with 7 cards in hand, they're going to draw into Draw Pain is always risky. So that means that a couple of Mana Crypt bolts will do it. So they're on quite the clock here, even if they manage to get rid of our creatures. And there's a Winds of Change, so playing the Winds of Change into our Draw Pain, our opponent's just having some fun here, I think. Saves us casting it. Alright, so managed to take our opponent down to 0 there. I think that was a pretty quick one, so we'll try one more. And now up against Manny, who we've seen on the channel plenty of times before. Do not have all of our colours there. The enchantments are tempting, but we've no means of triggering them anyway, so go for the mulligan. And of course get into a way worse hand, so Vandal Blast onto their stuff could be relevant if they get into some fast mana, but yeah, Font of Mythos, if we get into a land, we can actually go for Font of Mythos. Yeah, screw it, we'll keep it. Get rid of the Ponder, because we can't cast the Ponder. And it's a turn 1 Enlightened Tutor for our opponent. Into a Sol Ring and an Underworld Dreams. We are nowhere near, so just going to have to risk the lightning bolts here and pray that we get into a land next turn, because getting down Swiftfoot Boots here, but Font of Mythos next turn, and even then we're reliant on luck because we do want to be getting into lands off that. Can always Vandal Blast onto this Sol Ring at least. So down comes the ring and into an Imperial Recruiter, so 2 tutors in 2 turns. They'll at least be reliant on the fact that they have the Sol Ring, I imagine, so that tutor will not necessarily become relevant until much later. It is a Collector Oath. See what we draw into here. Okay, Demolition Field means, are we going to see their Samut next turn? I mean, yeah, we're not going to be able to tap down the Crypt for mana, so we have to go for the Font of Mythos now. Even though I wanted to go for the Vandal Blast onto this thing, we're potentially letting their commander in. Alright, they play a non-basic that we can blow up with the Demolition Field, so that can fix our colours in a really janky way. And there is the Oath, switching off our Swiftfoot Boots and the Crypt. Switching off their own Sol Ring as well though, so we don't necessarily have to go for the Vandal Blast after all. So we're still desperate for lands here. There's an island is excellent when we've got a Mystical Tutor available to us. Another land as well is good. So, we're just holding up the Mystical Tutor. Could go for a black mana Demolition Field and fetch out a blue source with this. That'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not particularly bothered about losing them that land, but it does fix our colours a bit better like I said, so 1 of each basic left in the library. Obviously there was no point getting down the rock if we can't tap it for mana. So maybe wait for them to get down the Samut and then we can go for a board wipe. Yavimaya will allow our fetches to tap for mana, and cards like Ancient Tomb as well. Mana Confluence so that we don't have to take life to it. Continuing to get pinged. Alright, so not going to show them the Mystical Tutor. I want them to play their commander into a board wipe. Okay, there's Generous Gift, so tap that for mana. Okay, yeah, let's just go for it now. Maybe we can go for a wheel. Yeah, let's just go for Time Twister. And then we do not take 3 to the Mana Crypt. Draw into the wheel, and we'll make more draws as well. Okay, there's a Windfall as well. Let's go for a duel here so that we can better fix our colours. Trying to get ourselves into a better hand here. I'm not sure how good my opponent's hand is, but they only go up a card there. And we got into a Toxic Deluge anyway, and back into the Underworld Dreams, so we can get a black mana next turn and play that if we want to. But yeah, unfortunately in Grixis, we're relying on artifacts for ramp. There's really nothing else we can do. We got our opponent into a tutor as well, so that'll be the third one from our opponent. So I think we're just slowly trying to set up, get the draw pane down next turn, along with a land, and then we can wipe the board with Toxic Deluge and shove out a lot of rocks. Anyway, our opponent has Myrel on top, so that's the card that they tutored for. Playing out a tap land, and there we see the Myrel come into play straight away. So that'll be good to get rid of because it does keep us off our counter spells. And there is a Vandal Blast for us again, so yeah, we're just going after more black mana, I think. Have to shock down the Watery Grave into Underworld Dreams, and if we're going to wipe the board of creatures, then it will switch back on the Sol Ring, so we might as well blow it up now. So now our opponent finally starting to take damage to all this card draw. Alright, hard casting the Samut during the main phase, surprisingly, so I mean that's the best play we could have hoped for really, because that plays straight into our Toxic Deluge. Wanting to get it down now so that he can get some commander damage on us, seemingly. Not holding up white mana for it either. Could suggest that one, he doesn't have swords or path, but also doesn't have any intention of using this ability. So we'll just try and save ourselves some commander damage. And we lose the Mana Crypt flip again, not doing too well this play session. Right, and we've got shocks to take even more life. So if we take 3 from the lands for a Toxic Deluge, then we'll have 4 mana left for Relic into Talisman. Talisman could take us into the Mystical Tutor again. I think that's what we have to do here. So we'll try and switch our rocks back on and wipe the board, and we do successfully wipe the board. So then we'll play out the Steam Vents, taking more damage unfortunately. Into Relic of Sauron, maybe get down the Howling Mine instead. We can always go for Mystical Tutor during our upkeep if we want to. We just want to be drawing our opponent as many cards as possible here. But you can see what a massive setup process it is for Nekusar, that's why it's not best suited to 1v1 really. Our opponent draws 4 cards now, 2 to the font, 1 to the mine and 1 to the draw step, and takes a ping every time that happens, but not getting anywhere near enough draw pain off here, giving our opponent all the cards and none of the pain. So there is a Dockside Extortionist now that the rocks have been switched back on. Makes 6 treasure tokens for our opponent. And there is Selvala, Explorer returns, so be able to gain a life with that. And it's more card draw into the draw pane, isn't necessarily the best thing, but can get a lot of good stuff going with the Selvala. Can afford the commander still as well. And then flashbacks, sacrificing that to the Eldritch Evolution. It's allowing me to keep priority this time, so yeah, we could have countered it during the first game, but they'll get a 5 mana creature into play here. Hopefully not an Acidic Slime. I'm thinking of maybe comboing off with this next turn if we're going to be struggling this much. Can go for Peer into the Abyss with the Mystical Tutor. I haven't totted up the mana yet. Alright, it was a Skyclave Apparition, and they're definitely going after the combo piece, which turns out is the right play. And then continuing to use that treasure mana. Mother of Runes is going to give protection from colours. So it's a hatebears deck by the looks of it. So are we just slamming down our commander here? Alright, so it's Mystical Tutor, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 mana. So that's 5 for the Nekusar and 4 left over. Is the rocks maybe? Yeah, let's go for another wheel here. The Peer into the Abyss would have comboed off with the enchantment, that's why our opponent removed it. So I'll just grab the Wheel of Fortune here and draw even more cards to the rocks. Gets us into an untapped land. There's a Jeweled Lotus as well. Shame that we draw into the mana drain now as well. get out the Lotus, which I feel as though you need in this deck on Magic Online, especially in 1v1, because a 5 mana commander is quite a lot to ask for. Tap down at the Lord of the Rings rock in order to make some Dimir mana. Or actually, I made Rakdos mana with that. And we can go Talisman, play the Demolition Field as well, because it's an untapped land. Swiftfoot Boots onto the Nekusar, definitely. And then, yeah, just hope that we can get into some counter magic to protect ourselves. So, just go for the Wheel of Fortune now. Would have been nice to go Bedevil onto this, because it'll be able to protect the Samut and have it get through for a bunch of damage, but yeah, not to worry. Okay, there's a Bloodchief Ascension, which could be relevant, but we also got into Counterspell, which we wanted, so yeah, I think it's best to hold on to the Counterspells as opposed to getting down Bloodchief Ascension a turn earlier. The Snap Mage is nice as well. So yeah, our opponent's down to 25. We will pass the turn like that. And now we've got our Draw Pane back online, but would much rather have had a couple of pieces in. Getting rid of that enchantment is going to be relevant this game. Noteworthy that the Incendiary command is pretty good against our opponent's small creatures here. Can deal 2 damage to all creatures. Our opponent shocks in a land. We'll take all the damage we can get here. A Mana Vault will ping our opponent if he decides to tap it into our opponent's commander, so yeah, let's just go for an Arcane Denial, I think. Or actually, we'll go for the Counterspell while we have double blue held up. It's a little bit risky giving our opponent too much card draw, although I think that ship has sailed. So managing to counter the commander. Was worried that they'd have a means of getting round that in green. It is relevant that they're not playing this with flash on us though. Making us counter it on our turn would be a lot worse for us. Noteworthy that a Blasphemous Act and a Winds of Abandon have been discarded at some point, so it might be that they have another means of wiping the board. Right, Generous Gift goes on to the Swiftfoot Boots, so they might be able to get rid of Nekusar yet. Going straight through combat. Okay, looking to maybe get these creatures in the bin. Or maybe there's a board wiping coming. They've got 4 mana held up for a Damnation or a Wrath of God, something like that. Or they want to reanimate the Dockside. This can't get rid of Nekusar anyway, so yeah, we'll block and just hope that it's a board wipe as opposed to reanimation. Not as likely to reanimate in Naya. They can protect 1 creature with the Mother of Runes as well. Okay, that's what they were after, and a Ganjo. So managing to get rid of the commander, and then protecting the Skyclave Apparition, so we'll keep the Elephant token. And after that it is a Deafening Silence. So each player can't cast more than 1 non-creature spell each turn, and that is very bad against us because we're in Grixis and we can't get rid of enchantments very easily. Lose the flip again to the Mana Crypt. There's a Force of Will. Mithril Coat coming up a bit too late, unfortunately, so yeah, Sheoldred could be very useful to us. Probably best to just get down the Sheoldred here, I think. We'll play the Command Beacon and get down Sheoldred. That will start to gain us some life, but it's more draw pain that our opponent is consistently dealing with, unfortunately. Yeah, that was an excellent hand for our opponent, because if it wasn't for that, we'd be doing a hell of a lot more this turn. So, do we go for the Bloodchief Ascension or for the Mithril Coat now? We can go for Mithril Coat on our opponent's turn, I suppose, so yeah, let's get down the Bloodchief Ascension. And we can afford our commander, but are we going to make use of the Force of Will next turn instead of the Mithril Coat? I think it's probably best to get down our commander, actually. So yeah, managing to get some stuff done regardless of the fact that we can't chain off non-creature spells. Maybe should have swung in with the Elephant token then. If I planned the turn out a bit better, would have swung in with the Elephant token to get another counter on this and get it off much sooner. We managed to stick the extra card draw with the draw pane intact. Yeah, so a bunch of triggers on the stack. They take 3 still per card they draw, and they draw 1 to the draw, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got them down a fair old way with more triggers still on the stack. Take damage to the Mana Vault as well, don't forget. Hopefully this Force of Will see us through here. So they draw to the Howling Mine, and that will deal another 3 damage. So hopefully we'll have them with the Incendiary command, can deal 4 damage to them and also shuffle the hands. Not untapping the Mana Vault puts them at 2. And thanks to getting that Elephant token, I don't think they can give protection to their commander with Mother of Runes where it's relevant. Black would protect against these 2, but then we could just chump with that, so I'm not entirely sure what they can do to us here, but I'm sure that our opponent will be able to surprise us. Alright, our opponent going for some kind of convoke spell, tapping down some creatures here. That is a Chord of Calling for 4. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm pretty sure I don't want to know. They've got 4 mana held up, so yeah, this might be bait, but I don't want another tutor, so get rid of the Day's Undoing and get the free Force of Willing. Managed to successfully counter that, so they've got 10 cards in hand and maybe 5 mana. I'm not sure if they made a land here. That is an Eternal Witness from our opponent, so we'll be able to fish something out with only 1 mana held up. And goes after the Winds of Abandon with that. And throws out a Llanowar Elves, going down to 9 cards in hand, so we definitely have our opponent next turn. Well, I say definitely, never assume. But I can't think of anything our opponent could do to get out of this. Bloodchief Ascension getting its second counter on here. It's not going to be relevant, unfortunately. It is a pet card of mine. I do really like this one. See if we take yet another Bolt to the Crypt. Of course we do. But we gain life to the Sheoldred anyway. We're going to gain a bunch of life here thanks to all the additional card draw, which is half the reason that we played her out. So there is a Cyclonic Rift. And we draw into an Urborg, which will turn our colourless producing lands into black mana, so get that out here. And we'll just play the Incendiary command. Deal 4 damage to each player. Alright, so seeing our opponent's hand here, it's a good game to D Manny. I appreciate him playing that out. Said he was going to grab Sabertooth to see if he could do something. But yeah, we had the counter magic for him anyway, so unfortunate from his perspective. But we did manage to get some good games in with Nekusar there, so hopefully you all enjoyed this revisit to what is now a very old commander. If you did, then be sure to leave it a thumbs up and consider donating on Patreon as well. Huge thank you to the few of you who do that already. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.